Welcome back to Our Community. Susie Thomas visiting with Sharon Snowden. She is the regent of the Catherine Richards chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution, located in the city of Greene. Also, the state chairman of Constitution Week. And we are learning everything about the Constitution. In fact, I want to take a break right now and put you to work. Sharon, I'm going to put an appeal out there to teachers to have DAR come visit their classrooms and share this kind of information. Are you open to that?
We are. We certainly are. We have many members in our chapter, and there are other chapters around the Stark County, Summit County area that would love to come into the classroom and give a program. We have activity sheets for the kids so that, they can learn more. I mean, something like word searches and crossword puzzles that they can really learn about the Constitution. So we'd be glad to come into any of the schools.
What's the best way to contact you?
Well, we do have on Facebook, we have a chapter Facebook page, the Catherine Richards chapter of the National Society Daughters of the American Revolution, and they could contact us on that Facebook page.
Perfect, and you can message you or
right.
Leave some kind of a post, and that way they can contact you and have you come to the classroom. Great time to do this. Can you still get you in this year?
Oh, yes.
Perfect.
We'll make time.
All right.
We'll find somebody and make time.
That's so awesome. And Constitution Day is?
September 17th.
And the week is?
September 17th to the 23rd. Now, since September 17th is on a Sunday this year, the celebrations can go on Monday.
The 18th.
The 18th.
So find something to do on September the 18th that honors our founding fathers and the Constitution. What are some good ways to celebrate? Do you have some good ideas for us?
Well, you can fly your flag for sure. Okay, you can write a letter, an editorial to the newspaper. You can ring bells.
Neat.
Now, there's bells across America, which at 4 o'clock on that day is when they figured that the Constitution was signed. You can ring bells, and it goes all across America, and it's Eastern Standard Time. So,
I was going to say time zone. So it's 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time.
Right.
So
right.
The rest of you, if you're listening online, figure it out. Yes. Okay. 3 hours earlier on Pacific Time. So
right.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
So fun. So that at the exact same moment, bells all across America will be ringing.
Right. And, your churches.
Yes.
Request your church to ring the bells.
Great idea.
And your government buildings.
And
if
get
they
the
have
carillons
bells.
going all at the same
Yes.
time. What a fun idea. I hope it happens. I hope it's just really loud.
Yes. Last year I had 100 ladies ringing the bells at 4 o'clock.
4 o'clock.
And they don't have to be big bells. They can be little jingle bells or,
On the 18th.
On the 18th this year.
Okay.
Yes.
So don't do it on Sunday afternoon. You'll be the only one doing it. Let's learn more about the signers of the Constitution, who these people were, because as you were telling me some of those stories, I just find it fascinating. Who signed it? Who didn't sign it? And why?
Well, we had 2 presidents that signed it, George Washington and James Madison. Now, Thomas Jefferson did not sign it because he was in France representing the country. And John Adams did not sign because he was in Great Britain.
Interesting.
So, yes. And do you know that the original Constitution is on display in the National Archives in Washington, D.C.? Now, what do you think happened when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor?
I don't know.
They took it to Fort Knox. They took it to Fort Knox for safekeeping.
Oh.
But since 1952, the Constitution has been on display in the National Archives.
And it's
building.
so interesting, isn't it? Preserved in some kind of special gas.
Argon gas.
Argon gas.
Argon gas, and it's kept at 67 degrees with a humidity of 40%.
And the parchment there is in pretty good shape, and you can read it, and you can see the signatures.
Right.
How brave did a person have to be to sign? Now, we know they had to be very brave to sign the Declaration of Independence. That was basically treason. To sign the Constitution, were we looking at brave men or just like, look what we've done?
Yes.
This is pretty cool, what we've just done.
They came from all walks of life. They came from, some were farmers, some, were lawyers, some were congressmen. So it was a pretty well distributed cross-section of the country. You know, we had Benjamin Franklin, who was the oldest signer. Now, he had to be carried in on a chair because of his gout, and he was the oldest one.
How old was he?
He was 81.
Okay, that is
81.
pretty old. Yeah.
Yes. And you know, when he died about, I think, 5 years later, 20,000 people came to Philadelphia and mourned. That was a large public event
That says
up
something
to that
about
date.
his impact. And also the fact that didn't Thomas Jefferson and John Adams die within hours of each other
Yes.
on July 4th?
Yes.
That's amazing.
It is.
That's an amazing
I know.
story.
That is. And Jonathan Dayton was the youngest one. He was only 26 years old.
Wow.
From New Jersey.
How did he know enough at 26?
I know.
Wow.
Yeah, because we think of that today as being
Just,
you know,
yes, right, getting
fresh
started.
out of college.
Right out of college.
And let me see, the word democracy does not appear in the Constitution at all.
Because we're a constitutional republic.
That's what Benjamin Franklin said. Whenever he
Okay.
left the Independence Hall, he said, it's a republic if we can keep it.
If we can keep it. Ooh,
Yes.
ooh, those words are a little ominous, aren't they?
Yes.
So when
that's
did the
what he
word
told.
democracy come into effect? Do we know? No?
I think it's been coined, you know, over the years, but like I say, it does not appear in the Constitution at all.
Does separation of church and state appear in the Constitution?
No.
Where did we get that idea that it did?
That, again, I think that's been by our lawmakers, our legislatures, you know.
It's so interesting. And yet we need to really focus on that First Amendment that guarantees religious freedom.
Right. Right.
We need to know this, don't we?
Exactly.
Because
That's-
it seems to me that if we don't know this, it can so easily be taken away from us.
That's
because we won't
correct.
know what's missing.
That's correct. Think about when you were younger and you didn't really focus on that. I mean, you know, you were busy with other things and you didn't know, you know, the laws that were being passed and everything. So you didn't pay attention to that. So it's very important for everybody to know the Constitution and what's in it.
Absolutely. Tell us more about these guys.
Signers. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. James Wilson of Delaware. He made the second most speeches. And have you ever heard of him?
Never
But
heard
he
of
made
him.
168, with Gouverneur Morris making the 173.
Well, these speeches were to the rest of the signers, or who were they speaking
Yes.
to?
Well, they were speaking to the convention. You know, that was behind locked doors. They would not, they had sentries guarding the doors. So they didn't want anything out that might influence, the public might influence any of these delegates in the convention.
And I remember hearing or reading that these were very contentious. That they had some knock 'em down, drag 'em outs as far
I
as
think
coming
so,
up with.
to start.
Yes.
And then as it went on, you know, it started in May of 1787, and it was finally signed in September on the 17th, 1787.
It
So-
is sad to think. They thought of so many things, but they were human beings. They didn't think of everything. And some things that they didn't get to or didn't agree on didn't get to be resolved until 100 and then 200 years later.
Right.
And we still are working it out, aren't we? It's almost
Yes.
like it's in process.
Progress, yeah.
It's a work in progress.
Yeah, now, we had George Reed of Delaware who signed the Constitution twice.
No, why?
Because he
How did he
signed
get to do that?
he signed once for himself and once for his friend John Dickinson.
Oh my gosh! Did he try doing
because
different handwriting?
He had to leave the Constitution because it was exhausting, you know, for
Are
him.
you allowed to sign twice?
Now, here's Robert Morris. He's of Pennsylvania and also a relative of
Okay.
Gouverneur. But he spent $1 million of his own money to finance the Battle of Yorktown. And he ended up in Prune Street debtor's prison
Really?
for 3.5 years when he couldn't pay his taxes.
How does a person get from donating $1 million and wait a minute, that's in their day money, right?
Right. right.
I can't fathom what that
I know.
is in
How
today's.
he had that.
Yeah, how do you earn that? And then how does a person end up a pauper?
Yes. Yes,
He gave
because
it all away?
He couldn't pay his taxes.
My goodness.
So.
My goodness.
And
That's a sad one.
Then here's William Patterson of New Jersey. He wanted the senators to be elected by the people, but the Constitution stipulated that they were to be selected by the state legislators.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he's known as the father of the United States Senate.
Okay.
There again, William Patterson.
Yes.
He introduced the New Jersey Plan, which favored the small states.
Okay. In which in the presidential elections or all elections, or that sounds like that's something that's trying to just again even it out.
Right. With the small states were very concerned that they weren't going to have a voice.
Mm-hmm.
In that. And who was it? There was Daniel Carroll of Maryland and Thomas Fitzsimmons of Pennsylvania were the only two Catholic delegates
Interesting.
at the convention.
Mm-hmm.
And he did help write the First Amendment and the 10th Amendment.
Wow. Which say what? What was we've talked about the First Amendment. When we get to the 10th Amendment, I think that the Bill of Rights is the first how many amendments?
10.
First 10. So what does the 10th
The
one say?
10th Amendment says that powers not given to government belong to the states
okay.
or individuals.
States' rights.
States' rights.
Which,
and they were very,
yeah.
All the education is not mentioned in the Constitution because that was a state's right to focus on the education.
Aren't we even yet today taking a look at all these things and saying what should be the job of the federal government and what should take place at the state level? I mean, that is a discussion
Right.
even for today.
It is very much so on a lot of different areas.
Which really, again, points to how much foresight these people had that they were
Right.
talking about the things we're still talking about.
Yes. And here is the Pierce Butler of South Carolina
Mm-hmm.
was on the committee that created the Electoral College.
Oh, that's the guy. If you've got a
Yes.
beef, that's the guy.
And many think that it was his idea. So,
Okay. Well, for many, many reasons, when you really look into it, you think, well, that was ingenious as well, as far as keeping things fair. There'll be a lot of people who think, but we know more now, and we ought to just be able to by popular vote. But then what's the difference between popular vote and mob rule? What's the difference
Right.
there? So
Yes.
it gives you pause. There's
Right.
always more complicated issues, and that's why we need to
Right.
learn this.
Right.
So that we can
Yes.
talk about it intelligently. Sharon, again, give us the website or Facebook address for the Daughters of the American Revolution so people can find out more.
yes, it's Catherine Richards Chapter, NSDAR. That is the Facebook page, and it's Catherine with a C.
All right. Sharon Snowden from the Daughters of the American Revolution of Green. And thank you so much for what you're doing in our community and in our state for Constitution Week.
Well, thank you very much, Susie.